Hey everyone, welcome to today's first episode of Step Up and Stand Out Spotlight Show. I'm so excited to be here to kick it off with the one and only Daniel Guzman, who is the global head of social media at Mercer. And I actually met Daniel on LinkedIn. I don't remember when, Daniel. Was it like earlier this year?
It was earlier this year.
Yeah, and we kind of struck up a friendship, like a virtual friendship, and I've just been so impressed with how Daniel makes the time to engage and comment on my posts and on a lot of other people's posts, besides also sharing fantastic and valuable content. So I'm going to stop speaking. And I'm going to have Daniel share a little bit more about herself before we go into the conversation about cultivating relationships on LinkedIn. So welcome, Daniel. Thank you again for making the time.
Thank you. Well, I'm so excited to be here, Nyna. It's such an honor, and I'm so glad that we met this year. It's interesting. You said that we've cultivated a digital relationship. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it last night, and I wonder if anyone else feels this way, or maybe I'm just the oddball here. But I have more friends digitally than in real life. And
Likewise, yeah.
and like real friends. There are people that I've met on this social journey 3-5 years ago that I've still not met in real life, but I trust them. I have ongoing dialogues with them all the time. I value them just as deeply as friends that I've, started the relationships in real life with. And I started thinking about that. I don't know what that means about me or about anyone else who's in that situation. And while I look forward to meeting everyone and anyone I have the opportunity to in real life, I treat everyone as equal. And I'm just so happy that we have this opportunity today, and that just in general that we can all use social media to build relationships, friendships, and take them wherever we want. It's really an exciting thing.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm sorry, I got distracted and you were sharing some great content, but suddenly it said that they're having difficulty streaming it on LinkedIn. I just got a message, so just give me a second to make. Yeah, see, so this is the problem with
going live.
Yeah, with okay. Yeah, I think we're good. I just checked the LinkedIn thing, so I think we're all good. Let me just open it up here as well, just so I can also make sure that it's this technology is amazing. The digital world is amazing, but you can't control it like you can do with like in person, events. I mean, even there things go wrong, but uh, you know, I love what you said about and I see Derek says it's working. Thank you so much, Derek.
Hey, Derek, great to see you.
Yeah, and Julian's here as well. Awesome. So, I'm in a similar, I would say in a similar, I wouldn't say boat really, but I think I've made a lot of connections on LinkedIn, especially in the last year since the pandemic started. And I've been, so impressed with again, I'm bringing this up because that's why you stand out, because I always see you posting and commenting, and I can imagine how many relationships you have built on this platform. And so, Mike, so before we go into that, I'd love to hear about your journey on LinkedIn. When did you get on LinkedIn, and what's the journey been like? And if you mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been on LinkedIn for years. I think, like many of us, I started using it as a platform for jobs for my career. And I was definitely one of those individuals that would just go to LinkedIn when I needed to do a career transition.
Right.
And I would update my profile in the way that I thought was meaningful at the time. But it was completely self-serving. And it was for me and my career. I was absolutely not thinking about others. And, I think the platform and the way we use it has come so far since then. And then I obviously, in my role professionally, I represent many of the different country channels that our organization has on LinkedIn. So, but that's still behind the scenes. I actually probably started using it probably about a year ago or so. I started kind of spending a little bit more time on LinkedIn. But even then, I was absolutely guilty of doing more content publishing rather than conversations.
Okay.
However, I was very conversational on other platforms. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. And in those platforms, I had a very kind of conversation first approach. So then I started just playing with it on LinkedIn, and I would say it's probably not been a year yet, probably about 9 months that I've been really focused on conversation, and have kind of just scaled it that way. But I've always had the philosophy of, to me, it's kind of about conversations and networking first and content second, which is why I'm so inconsistent. And I'm sure many of you in the audience are probably like, everyone, consistency plays a role, but I do feel like I share when I have something to share. And I much prefer, if I have limited time, I much prefer to have conversations and learn and contribute into other people's content before I share something else.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And I just saw Daniel, Jillian's just said Daniel is the queen of comments. And I so agree. And she's joining us from Las Vegas. So yeah, and my journey on LinkedIn's been similar. I joined LinkedIn in fact, my anniversary is coming up November 30th, 2007, for similar reasons to, because everyone was getting on LinkedIn to look for a job and to connect with people online. And I too really started leveraging it. Earlier this year, I did post, but it was all just sharing content because I host a lot of events and do a lot of stuff to empower women, but it was all one way. I was not engaging, I wasn't commenting, I wasn't building amazing relationships like like you started doing now. So I think it's so important. And many people, and I have a network of over 13,000 women in the expat woman community, and I tell many of them it has to be two ways, especially, as immigrants, when we come to a new country, we have like zero network. And I know you've lived abroad and worked abroad, and you have to also give to get and to make friendships and build your network. And with that being said, I wanted some tips from you, and what has worked for you in terms of cultivating relationships, building your network. I think you have 9,000 plus followers. So what do you do, and what can other people do to really, leverage LinkedIn as a platform it's supposed to be, which is networking? I mean, everything else, lead generation, comes second, right? So do you mind sharing so that we can use some of the things you're doing to build our relationships and cultivate them?
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully, if there's for those in the audience, please also share your tips, because I look forward to going into the comments afterwards. And it's all about two-way learning, as you mentioned. I guess for me, the first thing is why are you there, right? Because there's different types of relationships. So I have more personal relationships where it's genuine interest for myself, for learning, for growing. And who are the people that are sharing content that really resonates on that level? And so I kind of look at that as like one category. And then another category is more just, on a professional side, learning about the platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all the platforms, and who are the incredible people out there like Jillian, right? And I think I look at Jillian and her expertise kind of when it comes to video, and there's so many other people out there that have this rich expertise that can become someone that I engage with, and whether it's kind of through organic conversations or actually hire them to grow and learn. And those are another kind of relationship. And then we've got kind of the professional relationships that are related to the work one does. And so I'm particularly interested in the whole conversation around the future of work, and obviously some of the other things that I do from an organizational perspective. So I first bucket the relationships because they're all, to me, they all have a different purpose. And then what I do is I then look for who's having those conversations that I'm interested in. And so I use the search functionality, I use hashtags, I use keywords, and I find people that are having those conversations. And then I go and look at the content they're sharing. And most often, if you've found the right people, you're going to find that you have something to contribute to all their conversations. So whether we're connected or not, I join the conversation. So if you've shared something, whether it's an article or a podcast or a video or whatever the case may be, I'm a huge advocate of actually reading, listening, or watching whatever is being shared before I comment. I will never comment without doing that for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a certain sense of, I don't want to say it's endorsement, but if you say something is fantastic and you really enjoyed something and you legitimately haven't actually looked at it or read it or watched it, what if it isn't? And then your audience is trusting you, then taking their time to consume it. And they're like, that didn't resonate with me at all, or I didn't find anything valuable in that. So you kind of break a little bit of trust and credibility. And at the same time, the person who shared it is sharing it, hoping that people will consume it. So I really think it's important, for me at least, to read or consume the content first, and then put a comment there that contributes. I personally don't. I'm all for sharing what you actually believe, but I'm not someone that likes to start conflict. That's just not me. So I always look for an opportunity, a silver lining, a takeaway, something I've learned from it and will carry forward. And then I incorporate that into the comments. And that normally will help the person, right? Because other people will then hopefully see the conversation starting and join it. And for some people, that very first comment is an obstacle that people don't want to climb over. They never want to be the first person. I have no problem doing that. And so I just kind of like to leave the comment and then hopefully start a conversation. And I meet a lot of people that way, because either I'll get a direct message or an invite to connect saying, thank you so much for commenting, or I liked what you shared, and it just starts that dialogue. And then I continue doing that kind of every day over and over. And some people don't respond back, or maybe are intermittent on the platform. So you hear back a week or so later. But then those that are on the platform all the time, they definitely have a conversation back. And that's how I met Derek. And since then, he and I have had several conversations, and I look forward to actually speaking with him at some point before we wrap up this year. And then I kind of continue doing that. And I find that that's a really powerful way, because you're first and foremost helping that community, and you're helping that individual. And then you're benefiting from meeting someone that you have a common interest with. And I always believe that whilst it might not be clear at the onset how that individual will help you on your journey, it does become clear.
I love this. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm just reading all the comments while, people are sharing their tips as well. There's so many of them. But, as Jillian said, to tag someone in the post so they're notified. I think a lot of people, comment, and then it gets lost in the, the crowded platform that LinkedIn is.
And that's a great point, because I always, if you posted something and I'm commenting on your post, I will always tag the author. Always tag the author. And then if there's someone else that maybe I know that would really like to see that content as well, I will also mention them in my comment. But I do the latter part more sparingly. I need to really know that this person is genuinely going to be interested, because I definitely don't want to spam. And I want to make sure that, and it's always exciting though, when people connect, when you bring someone else in and then that author and this new person connect and then they begin a relationship. I always find that really exciting.
Definitely. And, so another comment is Anne said about make sure your comments at least 5 words. I agree, because I see a lot of people say great job or great post. And I know for some people, writing even a comment is really hard. A lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, because it's a professional platform. It's Facebook and Instagram, you can get away with anything, right? You can get away with slang, you can get away with emojis, but LinkedIn, you just feel like people you've known like years ago, even currently, who work with you professionally are watching you, listening to you, and I think that's what's stopping a lot of people from even commenting. And for people who post and then there's crickets, it's so hard, because then it might stop you in the future from posting, because no one wants to have a post without any comments. And this is where you come in, Daniel, because I know there are a lot of LinkedIn experts and gurus, and they all belong to the circle, and I comment very often on their posts, but I don't think many of them have ever reciprocated and commented on mine. And it's not like all my stuff is terrible. I do share stuff related to LinkedIn or my own story, and that's where you stand out, because you do belong to this circle of LinkedIn gurus, but you always make the time, even if people have fewer followers, because people also look at that, oh, she has only, or he has only 4,000 or 5,000 or 1,000, so I'm not going to even comment, because I don't want to have them in my news feed. I don't want to see who. And I think this is where I think LinkedIn needs to change, because it's also about uplifting and empowering not just the big people who have thousands of followers, but also people who are trying to get onto the platform. And you never know, those people could one day become influencers and thought leaders. And and even if they don't, I think that's where I find there's a disconnect with LinkedIn about networking, because people seem to refrain from commenting on people who they don't see as thought leaders, LinkedIn experts, influencers. And you are so again, kudos to
Well,
you for being different. And yeah, go ahead, sorry, I cut
no,
you.
I was going to say, I'm listening to you, and I see that. I definitely see that. And my philosophy is two things. One, I'll talk about kind of that fear aspect, but then also this concept of influencers and followers. And so, obviously I work with, thousands of employees professionally across the globe. And I always say to anyone that everyone influences someone.
Yeah.
So it's really important to remember that. And I know it can be difficult, but if you've got 400 followers, someone else has 350, right? If you've got 300, someone just getting started and they've got 10. And actually, I will say that's one thing I never look at. I have, on the contrary, though, seen people comment on my content sometimes, and then I'll look up and I'll be like, wow, this person had 350,000 followers, and that stands out to me.
Right.
But I never actually use that as a criteria for commenting. What I use is the content. Is it
Exactly.
relevant?
Right.
Is it a conversation that I feel I can contribute to, or that I can learn from and I want to be able to contribute to?
Right.
I think, to me, that's the most important. And then when it comes to the fear, one of the things I also say when I'm coaching a lot of our clients is, if it's possible, and you have someone on the platform that so maybe it's a colleague or it's a friend, start there. Like, join their conversation and comment in what I almost feel like is a safe space.
Right.
And start there. And then after a few times, you can start branching out. And then you might have an exchange that goes back and forth. So don't just leap into, because it can be difficult, right? A lot of people find it really, I don't know, scary to look up a keyword and then just start conversations with people they don't know. And I think that's okay. And I think as long as we're honest with ourselves and we start where we're comfortable. And what's nice about this community, and there's a lot of us in it, is that, it is in a way a little bit of a safer space, and so people kind of connect with one another, and you can start contributing with people and build that confidence, and then slowly branch out in the way that you're comfortable. But I think there's so many wonderful people on this platform.
Right.
For every kind of negative interaction I come across, I would say there's hundreds positive.
I agree. And part of the goal for starting this LinkedIn series was to inspire, because I have so many women in my network who, want to be on platforms like LinkedIn, but are nervous. And one of the reasons is because they feel if they post, no one's going to like their content, no one's going to comment, maybe there'll be haters. And I just say, just go out there and do it. And even if you're adding value and creating impact in one person's life, it's so worth it. And the fewer the followers, maybe other people who have few followers may also then feel inspired. So one of the things I do is I sometimes the content may not be exactly what I want, but I see this person is just starting off and they're struggling and they're trying so hard and no one's commenting, and I want their post to be seen in the feed, and so I'll comment just to get them started, because I know it's just for me, I couldn't write when I first started, but you do it regularly. After a while it just flows, especially if you're authentic and sharing your own story. And anyone listening to this who is nervous about posting, who's worried, I just encourage you, just put yourself out there. I think people are so supportive and forgiving, and you will slowly build that audience and also build the confidence to post. With that being said, so how do you manage your time? Because I know you're global head of social media. I know you're a mom. I know you do I know you like to bake cinnamon buns and you go for walks in nature. So how do you, because this is something that I struggle with, and I know a lot of people, how much time do you spend every day on LinkedIn? How many posts do you do a week, and how many comments? I know you comment based on the content. You don't just say, okay, I'm going to comment on 5 people or 10 people. So would you mind sharing some of the stuff you do and how we can manage this whole LinkedIn platform in terms of conversations, engagements, posts? Any tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely, I don't have a secret sauce. So that's for sure. Honestly, the start of my day always is determined when I first log in, honestly, because of what I do, right? I do social media for an organization. We're always on 24/7 and it's global. So the start of my day is the end of the day for many countries that we are active in. So the first thing I always do is I just log on and see what has happened overnight. I just need to have a quick assessment to see if there's any major things that I have to divert my attention to. Otherwise, I know my personal calendar in terms of the meetings I'm committed to and the work that I'm doing with the team. So I never know what might happen. So there's always that kind of wild card aspect. So with that aside, I always go on to LinkedIn in the morning. So I go onto all the social channels first thing in the morning. And I don't spend that much time. I might spend 15, 30 minutes. And normally I do that as I'm walking home from dropping my daughter off at school. So the first thing in the morning is it's a rush, it's getting ready, lunches out the door. And then on my way back, sometimes I'll tune into a Clubhouse conversation, and otherwise I will catch up on LinkedIn. I really try to start with notifications most often. I like to be able to see kind of the conversations that are happening and make sure that I'm contributing back and or answer questions. And then I go through as well kind of the direct messages that I receive. Just to make sure that there's nothing there that shouldn't be sitting and waiting. And then kind of I balance into work and kind of meetings, but then I schedule my day in boxes, if that makes sense. So I don't have 30 minutes and then a gap for 30 and then another 30 minutes. I bring everything together so that my gaps are significantly larger. And that allows me then to kind of go in midday back into LinkedIn, check and see what's happening, and then kind of back into the work. And then at the end of the day. So, I mean, on average, I would probably say on a normal day, I'm probably on LinkedIn between 1 and 2 hours. It might be higher if I'm spending time behind the company pages. So that would be for myself. If I'm spending time behind the company pages, kind of doing some things, it might be a little bit higher. But and then there's some days when I'm only there 30 minutes. On average, on a regular week, I post 3 to 4 times a week. Sometimes I might get up to 5 posts, but not consistently. Most of the time, it depends as well how a post is doing. Sometimes if I post and for whatever reason, it's a really big conversation and it requires a lot of, review and comments and stuff, then I might delay a post I had going out the next day because I won't have the time to continue those conversations and start a new one. So I kind of prefer to be more engaged and less kind of keep putting content out. I guess the other kind of caveat to that is I do speak at events. I do participate in other events and work with different people and organizations. And so with that comes kind of commitments and responsibilities. So if those require promotion or engagement, then that gets added on to what I'm doing every day. So some days can be busier than others. And then on the weekends, I try actually to post less and engage more. My rule of thumb when it comes to conversations, so I kind of think of commenting as a strategy. Often people write like a content strategy for posting every day. I think of the comment strategy first, and then the content strategy second. So I always kind of first think of who am I trying to connect with? What am I trying to accomplish? I actually have lists of people that I'm trying to build relationships with. And so some of them might take me 90 days. Sometimes I've had 6 months of conversations with people before where I'm engaging in their conversations and it takes 6 months for them to finally respond back to me. And it depends, right? Because some of the professionals that I work with, I'm actually recruiting influencers from a professional perspective. So it can take some time to almost get on their radar. Whereas other people I have a conversation with last night and we're now connected as of this morning and we're chatting. So everyone has their different speed at relationships, but I kind of track it all. Right. And then I kind of continue chipping at the block, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it does. It does. Based on, I had a question, actually, follow-up question on that, because you want to connect with certain people on LinkedIn for professional reasons, but they are on LinkedIn, but they rarely post, but so how, in that case, how do you build a relationship? Maybe, like I do a lot of events, so I want sponsorship from these companies. I want to build relationships with the people, but if they're not posting, how am I going to build it? Because I don't want to just, send a cold email or message, LinkedIn message. have you faced that, or with some of your list of people that you made?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, so one of the things that I do is I recruit influencers. And influencers, at least my version of influencers, does not mean you are socially influential or have authority on social media. That's a component of it, but you can be highly influential and actually not be on digital channels. So it depends what we're trying to accomplish in terms of kind of how I go about it. But I do look at whether I'm using just LinkedIn, or I also use Sales Navigator. So I definitely look at and sort on people based on their activity. So I look at people who have been active in the last week and then in the last 24 hours. Because you're right. If I'm trying to connect with someone who hasn't been on LinkedIn in the past 30 days, whether I send them an email, direct message, I comment on whatever they shared 30 days ago, the chances are quite slim that they're going to respond back in a timely manner. And I think that's because I'm not connecting with them in the way that they choose. They're one of their primary ways of connecting. So that tells me that this will not be the channel. But then I do look at other channels, because interestingly enough, there are some people that are much less active on LinkedIn, but they're active every day on Twitter. Or I can find them in Clubhouse. So I move around to figure out where can I find them.
That's a great strategy, and thanks for sharing that. And that being said, what's your favorite social media platform? Because you are the head of, and you don't have to say LinkedIn just because you're on LinkedIn. You won't get into LinkedIn jail for saying that. But what do you say, strategically, what's your favorite social media, and also for cultivating relationships?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that, because I had a conversation with LinkedIn yesterday, because I work with, obviously, since we're, from an organization perspective, I work with people at LinkedIn on the professional side. And I actually said to them that on a personal side, and it wasn't just to be nice, but I did tell them that on a personal side, I genuinely spend more time on LinkedIn than any other platform. And I actually prefer it. I wouldn't have said this probably a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, I probably would have said I preferred Twitter. And I still really do enjoy Twitter. However, what I like about LinkedIn is that you can actually express yourself. You can have full conversations. You can write posts and kind of bring the vulnerability in and that emotion and be able to not only share content, but share your perspective or your experience to contribute to what the content is that you're sharing. Where on Twitter, it's really tough to do that in 240 characters. And you can do it on Instagram. But I haven't, the community I've built on Instagram is very different. The community on Instagram is much more personal. It's more focused on everything I sort of do outside of work. And so for me, I find this is such a high value place. Now, the other thing that I do is I have very different communities. I have overlapping communities, and then I have, if you were to have concentric circles for each social platform, they overlap. But I would say at least half of every circle is unique to the platform. So if I go over to Twitter, there's a lot of relationships I have there that I may or may not necessarily be connected 100% here. So a lot of times I will carry them over. Like I'll go over and intentionally say, okay, who am I talking with in this topic? And am I connected with all of them on LinkedIn? And if not, that's an opportunity. So I come over and see, are they present and are they active? And if so, I make that connection and I start a new conversation here. And then I do the same thing going the other way. So it allows you to grow within your own network, because how often do we look at our network on each platform and literally synthesize them to see where the overlaps are and where the growth opportunities are? So that's something that I've been doing lately, and it's been really exciting.
I love it. That's a fantastic strategy. We started a minute late because we had a little bit of. So I'm gonna, and I like to stick to the time, but I see we have one question from Corinne about how do you recommend those who work with big corporations who may avoid comments. So maybe it's similar to my question. So I think it's basically they don't comment on your post. I'm not sure. So Corinne, maybe you can explain in the chat box what do you mean by that. And Derek said lots of followers doesn't equal great content. And
good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it could be that what Corinne means is, I know, for example, when I work with colleagues at Mercer, there's a higher propensity for people to share content than comment and have conversations. And that goes back to the comment you made at the beginning that there's fear. I mean, right? It's a professional platform. What if they feel they said something wrong? Someone sees it, they're nervous. So we do work with colleagues, and I kind of tier them. And one tier are people who are advocates very passionate for what they do in the brand, and they share content, but they don't comment. Then I kind of look at the next group that wants to learn how to comment, and we take them on the journey of how to do that, how to find their voice, how to write those messages on their own, and we actually work with them. And when you see them start, once you get started, you find that voice pretty quickly and you take off. And then there's others that just comment all the time, and so then I try and connect them. So someone who's a real conversationalist with someone that's not having a conversation, but if they're in the same business area and they can connect with one another, it really helps for kind of the peer-to-peer to help one another. Which yes, because commenting is fear that company you work with disagrees. Well, that's it. That goes back to the company culture, and that also goes back to kind of what your social media policy is. So for us, we strongly believe that all of our employees are empowered to bring their points of view to life on social media. Our policy is less about control and what you can't say. It's more about how to activate your voice in a positive and contributory way. And yes, there's obviously things that you should not be doing, but the emphasis is more on the opportunity, because everyone has a unique point of view. And the way I might talk about something is different than the way someone else might talk about something, because it's aligned to our own experiences. And that's not wrong. It's just, and someone might relate not with my point of view, but with someone else's point of view. So it's really encouraged for colleagues to actually be very vocal and share that point of view. And I can tell you, we have over 18,000 colleagues that are pretty active on a daily basis. Wow. And it's very, very rare that something kind of comes up that might be shared that is kind of inappropriate. I mean, extremely rare. And I think that's really important, because most individuals are on social media, whether you know it or not. If you work for an organization or you work as an entrepreneur, there's the majority of us have some presence somewhere on social media. So I think it's more value additive to equip people with the tools and the know-how to be successful rather than hold them back.
I agree. Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And I think a lot of companies need to change their policy, because I think they're so afraid of their, employees posting something on LinkedIn which they feel is not appropriate. They don't really empower them and teach them the skills on how to use LinkedIn. And it's wonderful that Mercer is doing that. So we have just 1 minute left. I'm going to do some rapid fire questions and you can answer. Don't worry, don't be nervous. So there are 3 questions, you can answer them. One is like, how, because my show is all about stepping up and standing out and kicking imposter syndrome to the curb. So what is one thing people can do to step up, stand out, and kick imposter syndrome to the curb on LinkedIn, to be present on LinkedIn or create a presence on LinkedIn? Second, what's your favorite hashtag? And third is, how can people connect with you besides following you? I know you have your own personal LinkedIn profile or LinkedIn hashtag or anything else that you want to share. If you have an offer, you want to promote something. So those are my 3. So let's do it in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when it comes to imposter syndrome, the one thing I always think of is, I have a child. So if you happen to have a child, I always think about what is it that I'm doing that resonates with her, because they see you through such a different lens. And actually, I did a quiz with her last week. I was doing one of those personality type of tests, and I read out the options to her. I said, am I this or this or this? And she immediately told me. And I was like, why is that? And then she explained to me why. So whenever I'm struggling with something, I'll often say, what do you think? Am I good at this? Or what do you think my point of view is on this? And it's so raw and honest. And it kind of gives you the confidence to be like, okay, if she thinks that, someone else is going to think that. Right. And I always kind of use that as a sounding board. It works. It's kind of interesting. Try it. Not with your husband, spouse, significant other. Try it with a child. And then the second one, my favorite hashtag is the future of work. That's the one I use the most, because it spans everything from a career perspective, individually, our journeys of learning and self-fulfillment and where we're trying to go, through to the well-being facets of that, all the way through to the more like the way we work today, whether that's hybrid, in-person, virtual, entrepreneur, gig, etc. It covers everything. And I think we don't know what we will be doing 10 years from now. And that conversation to me has so much potential and power. And it's such a wonderful place to learn on LinkedIn if you follow that hashtag and engage in it. And then how to connect with me. I love connecting with people. I have no bias on anything. I never connect with people with an agenda, and I love people who connect with me as well. So you can reach out and connect here on Twitter, on Instagram. My email is connected to my LinkedIn profile as well. I think the only thing I don't have connected is my phone number. So I always welcome anyone and everyone to reach out. I love meeting new people.
I can vouch for that. Daniel's a great person to connect with, especially when you've posted something, you feel like crickets, and then there's Daniel, cheering you on and also sharing some meaningful and, insightful advice or comments. And so thank you. So thank you so much, Daniel. This was amazing. I learned so much from, I've been so keen to speak with you. We were supposed to do coffee chat. We never got down to that. So this is the first time we're actually meeting virtually and hopefully someday in person. I want to thank everyone who's joined us. Today I see Derek said, is that the hashtag the future of work? I think
it's just future of work. Remove just hashtag future of work. Yeah. Sorry about that, Derek.
Future of work. Yeah. And you can, share that again in the, once we're done, if you go to LinkedIn, the event page, the LinkedIn Live event, you can share anything you want, Daniel, in the comments and respond to people. So thank you all so much. And I'd love to have you back on this show again in the future. I have so many more questions for you, but I wanted to stick to 30 minutes. We're a little past that. Sorry about that. And I'll see you all soon. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful Thanksgiving ahead.
Thank you so much. I wish you the very much same as well. And to everyone who's joined us today, thank you. And I'll definitely go into the comments afterwards.
Okay, awesome. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.